Hello everyone, welcome back on my channel. Look who's here! My name is Glenna Vilmanarang, your Solish Femme girl. If this is your first time on my channel, welcome. And to those of my returning subscribers and viewers, please, I thank you. And if you have not done so, subscribe on my channel. Do you ever felt like you are so behind in life, or you are not a person that usually fit in? Welcome to my world. I've always known that as a girl, I never quite fit in. Although there are things in my life that was imposed on me, standards of people, societal standards perhaps, what is appropriate, what is good for you, and what isn't. Of course, we all want to conform because if not, we become an outcast, we are penalized for not trying to conform to societal norm. But as I have learned, the best way to find your authenticity and to find your identity is that knowing who you are in God. And if you have been here on my channel, where I always emphasize on self-improvement, talking to Jesus, salvation, as well as giving you practical advice on how to live your fabulous life in this one temple that God is giving us rather. So today's topic is about it's okay not to fit in. You are not just a person that you should fit in a box. Neither should you allow society to do so. It took me a long time to really grasp and take that concept because, as I said, you are trying to blend in because people want you to become who they want you to become, especially in a generation that my parental upbringing was very strict. There are certain rules, and I just know that some people do things differently. So as a girl, I was always an introverted. That was a term that I did not know anything about, but I knew that something was not right with me, in a sense that I was kind of a girl who just rather want to sit at the back row, never seen in public. I would avoid eye contact with my teacher because I don't like to raise my hands. I was the kind of girl who was very bashful. Even though I know the answer, I would just let other people answer it, but I would just watch. I was very observant, and that was my superpower. I observed people. I just somehow knew that if I just keep my quietness, then people are gonna probably see me differently. And of course, growing up, I was always on the pedestal because people asked me to be in beauty pageants, which I grew up in beauty pageants. And along the way, it was something, again, that was imposed on me. It was something that my family or my group of friends or the people in my town that had convinced me to participate in the beauty pageant. It wasn't my choice. As I said, there are certain things that you wish you could just say no or decline, but because it was due to pressure, it's due to people's standard. And so, of course, you just do it grudgingly in my behalf. But that actually forces me to be in the front and center. It forces me to get out of my shell because as introverted, I would rather enjoy being in my bedroom, reading books and journaling, or playing with my cousins or my sisters, paper dolls, or hide and seek. But for some reason, there was another side of me that forces me to be really on the stage where I had to strut on my swimsuit and my high heels that I have dreaded. And of course, fast forward, the more and more I think about it, I was thinking to myself, how many girls in our society who are actually being forced to do something that they don't want to do? And on one hand, it's good to have confidence, to build confidence. Now, wouldn't you think that because I have joined the beauty pageants, it made me confident? Actually, it did the opposite. Because the more I have learned competing with other girls, the more I hated myself. And that actually became so clear to me how I hated my body at that time. Teenagers years is actually one of the most awkward years in my entire life, or I'm pretty sure if you're a teenager watching this, you can relate, because in that moment of my life, I was still trying to figure out who I was. I didn't know the kind of things that I liked and the kind of personality that I would like to embody. And on top of that, I was always comparing myself to other girls, to other people around me. I hated my legs. I thought my legs were too big and I was just too short. And so all of this insecurity starts coming out in the open that I did not tell a soul, because I was just saying to myself, no one's going to understand me. But insecurity was very relevant at that time because I was a teenager and here you are competing with other girls. And so to make the story short is that sometimes in life we cannot really allow society to tell us who we should be, along the lines of trying to make you believe that if you do not conform to a certain standards or go by societal norm, then you are not special or something's wrong with you. Because for a long time I had to be able to grasp the idea of being able to socialize myself, being at the front because I was forced to, being on the stage. On the other hand, I was also introverted, which I preferred being at home and, living in my own place and just being in my own thoughts, journaling and reading. These are the things, or karaoke by myself or my sisters or my brother. But these are the things that I enjoyed the most. And that's why sometimes when you think into the world where the norm is loudness, embellishment, flashiness, overly sharing on social media. This is why I've always been a person who I always like to choose and pick which one to share on social media. I used to have Instagram and Facebook, and there was a time where I was always posting and sharing and giving people about where my abouts and what was I doing. And it come to a point as an introverted, I know you can relate, it got exhausted. It was exhausting for me to overshare things, and it seems as though it is so superficial. I know some people might hate me saying, well, for them that's how they make their money, especially for influencers. This is how they actually create this income through social media. I know people have a different take on that one, but for the introverts like myself, it's very hard for us. It is so hard for us to try to not too showy and not too far gone of reality, because I know that right now they say you have to get on the wagon, otherwise you'll be left behind if you're not into the social platform. But this is where sometimes as an introvert, as a person who rather want to be invisible, who rather want to be, don't have this pressure that you just want to hide, that somehow if you don't share to the world, somehow something's wrong with you. And this is sometimes where the conflict begins. And maybe perhaps you're asking, well, if you are introverted, why are you sharing this video? Because for me, this is where I can really share my ideas, because this is a microphone. Microphone is next to me, but this is a camera where I can just say to the camera, but at least you can watch it without getting me interrupted. Because part of the introverted people too, like myself, is not just trying to fit in, but trying to be embraced for who you are. Because we love loud people. We love the overly confident woman, and we love the loudness of other people because we think that they're the most confident people in the room. But as I have learned, sometimes I am not the type of the person. So we have to really learn how to agree to disagree and to cohabitate in an area that we can just get along with everybody, even though you're not the loudest person in the room. But there are people out there that you just want to be friends with because they are probably shy or they're insecure. And I've always was drawn to those kind of people in my life. I was always drawn to the people that was like me. I was looking for someone that was not too loud and obnoxious. And I have learned that when I found out that you're too obnoxious or too arrogant, I will just detach myself from you or not going to associate myself with you because we are actually going to collide. So that's why when I was a child too, or growing up as a little girl, making friendships was also one of the things that I was very careful of who I surround myself with, because as introverts, we like to fit in, not necessarily to be liked or being validated. We like to fit into the kind of like-minded women. And so for me, when I was always trying to find out who these girls are, I was always drawn to people that are quiet and people that are not really loud, reserved people. And it's the same thing right now. When I look at my YouTube channel that I followed, it's the same way. I'm always drawn to certain people. They live in a cottage, they have a slow life of living, and they just love their own company. And that is something that I gravitate towards, because these are my people. And it took me a long time to realize who I am as a person, because as I said, when we don't understand that there are different kinds of people in the world, we are stereotyped, or we are put in a box, or categorize every individual. And if for some reason you don't act, you don't look like everybody else, or you don't dress like everybody else, or you don't talk like everybody else, then you are going to be deemed weird, strange, or awkward. So this is why, if you think that you don't belong, let me assure you, you do belong. And you cannot allow society to guilt you or to embarrass you if you think that you should just be out there. Because one of the things too, as an introvert, we are a homebody. We love to be at home. We like to just be in our own company like a hermit. I mean, there are days that I just don't go outside unless I have to, going to the market. But other than that, we find ways to keep ourselves entertained. And one of the things about being an introvert is that there are times that we just want to be quiet and silent. And I used to be asked, are you mad at me? Is there something that I did say that is wrong? Why are you so quiet? Those are the classic questions I used to receive growing up. These are the questions that sometimes my friends or some of my family members would ask me. Did I say something to offend you? Because you're so quiet, you're not saying anything. Because as introverts, before we process some things, it takes for us a long time. We know as an introvert, we like to dissect things, overanalyze things, and we like to understand what the person is really saying. And for me, I have to really make sure that I'm saying the right words, or I'm not going to come off as aggressive or going to offend you. Of course, when I came into this country, I had to realize that I became aggressive because I was forced to be aggressive. It was some kind of the beast that was awakened in me. If you think about it, I could come on as extroverted. I could be really friendly on the outside. If you're friendly, I'm also friendly. I usually say hi, hello to people that are strangers, even though you never said hi to me in the first place. I would say hi, hello, because I can just also have this introversion and I can be extroverted depending on the kind of people. Now, there are certain people though that I repel, that for some reason when they come into your atmosphere, you just feel something in their energy, and I just try to avoid those kind of people. Boundaries and trying to say something tells me that this person is not someone to be trusted, or something is off with her. Now, I'm not saying that you should judge people by its cover, but for some reason, as an introverted, your intuition never fails. Because I can attest to this, that when I was younger, every time some of the girls would want to be part of my group, and I would say, I'm not sure, you can just ask some of my girlfriends, but I just knew that she was not the kind of a girl that I want to be hang out with, because of her demeanor, is the way that she probably was talking to other people. Like, I just knew she was a busybody, like a gossiper. And so those were the kinds of people that I avoided, even to this day. That for some reason, in my own head, if you're gonna talk bad about other people, it just shows your character, and I have no time for your gossip. I have no time for the drama. And so this is why some of the introverted people out there who can relate to what I'm saying is that your superpower is your intuition. And I have always known that your intuition will never lie to you, because when we become silent and we just listen to what the person is saying, we can pick up on their energy, we can pick up on their body language, we can pick up on the words that they use. And when we are keen to our intuition, to our voice, to that God-given voice that has given us the conscience to recognize and discern, that is one of the power of our intuition, is that when you are introverted, you introspect. And another thing, if you don't feel like you fit in because you always introspecting yourself. As an introvert, you like to examine yourself all the time. For some reason, I always like to ask myself the question, did I do something wrong today, God? I should have done better. Maybe I should have never said that. If you are also an introvert, those are your characteristics. You somehow get into your psyche and your soul and you ask yourself the question, if somehow you made a mistake, or you have probably insulted someone, or you yelled at your child, or you were bad, or you're just saying something unkind to your husband or your spouse, you have this tendency to just sit somewhere and you just internalize and analyze what you have said so that in the future you can correct it. Let me know down in the comment if you feel the same way I do, because one of the things that I'm trying to understand, me as an introverted person, is that you actually perhaps is God is closer to you because you tend to have this purity at heart. You want to have this kind of heart which is humility. You don't usually think like everybody else, where people say nothing's wrong with me, I didn't do anything wrong. It's possibly their fault, because as an introvert, as I said, we usually attract toxic, narcissistic people. Maybe because they are drawn to us of our quiet demeanor, our calmness when we are not being triggered. I'm not saying that when introverted people are triggered, they don't snap or they don't yell or scream. Yes, they do. Because when you give people many chances, and this is also one of the things I have learned about myself, when you give people the benefit of the doubt, all the time giving in and just understanding them, but there will come a point in your life when you get tired. And when you realize enough is enough, these people have been disrespecting me, they have been pushing my buttons, and they're doing this intentionally, then we can go to our introversion. We usually become so quiet that we are setting the tone. And you will recognize how powerful introverts are, because you will realize that the people around you starts being quiet too. They become silent, because if they find out that you're doing this to keep the peace or no conflict, they too are going to copy you. Because narcissistic people, they have no identity. They don't know what they stand for. So when you are involved with narcissistic people, this is another thing of an introvert, you set the tone. You change this atmosphere in your environment. Let me know again if you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have the power to change the atmosphere. I'm not sure if empaths, introverted people, which I'm still learning, maybe they're the chosen people of God. I have no clue, because Jesus too was the man who loved being by himself. Jesus always was on the mountaintops, being by himself on the olive tree, at the olive tree, praying and always introspecting himself and examining, and he just went to on the solitude. And when you see even Buddha, he was in the lotus tree, he also went away, and some other people like Mahatma Gandhi, they just love to be by themselves, just trying to understand who they are. Because according to 1 Corinthians 4:2, it says, moreover, it is required in stewards that one be found faithful. If you're faithful in where God has planted you and called you, and you know exactly the kind of a person you are, you're just gonna know thy oneself. And all things are lawful for me, but all things are not helpful. That's why when you're trying so hard to fit in, all things are lawful, but not everything is helpful. This is why you cannot entertain everybody. You cannot be at everybody's beck and call. You cannot just keep saying yes to everyone, because everything might be good, but they're not helpful to you. Because when you're always in this go, 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 and so many people, you're going to be depleted of that energy. I have learned this 5 years ago. I've always wondered, why is it that after I come from my family reunion, we would have Christmas parties and I would spend time with them. At the end of the night, I feel the sense of lethargicness, tiredness, and some kind of energy was pressing on me. Something was heavy. And I didn't understand, because that at that moment, and it happened many times when I really thought about it, it's because the energy that was coming on too much excitement, too much light, too much here, that I could not take it. And that's why it says here that everything might be lawful, but they're not helpful. As an introverted people, we only have few hours in a day that we tolerate noise, we tolerate this bustling, hustling. This is why when you live in the city like myself, you somehow feel this pressure around you. You feel this too much vibration, energy. This, when you go to the city, so much traffic, it gives you a headache. It makes you feel like this is not where I'm supposed to be. But when you're at home and you're surrounded with flowers and plants and candle lights and sweet aroma that makes you calm, and the music that is coming, you're gonna be centered again, and you're gonna have that peace of mind and heart. But just watch yourself when you're surrounded with a crowd, especially too when I was in my younger years. My friends and I would go clubbing. At the end of the night, I was always tired. It took me a long time to get back to my aura of this energy, because again, you're clubbing, the noise is so loud and there's so much vibration and so much energy around you that I could only last for 2 hours the most. And every time my friends would say, we just got here, but I want to go home, I cannot be here anymore. And probably people think I was a party pooper, but I did not understand why I was that kind of a person, that only for 2 hours I could just be outside. But more than that, I had this feeling that this is not where I want to be. Because as introverted, we are not good with crowds. We are not good with so much flashes and lights and the things that are just too noisy, that is common for people, right? Wouldn't you think that people would love to be around and about? I mean, sometimes when you also sit at the restaurant, there's so much noise, you just somehow try to absorb everything around you, and it gets too much to us who are introverted, who loves to just be in our own company. I'm not saying that we should be weird and we should just not have friends or not have group of people around us, but just observe yourself, that if you think you do not fit in, like myself, you are not alone. You are not weird. You are not strange. It's just how God created you and me. We're just different. That's why Jesus said, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You're not supposed to be like everybody else. You're not supposed to act like everybody else. You're not supposed to think like everybody else. So if you think that you're trying so hard to fit in and you are still wondering, why am I doing the things that I do? Why am I such a loner? Or being alone doesn't really bother you as much as everybody else. If you are an introvert, being alone does not bother you. Because why? You love your own company. You are your own best friend. And you usually don't ask people's opinions so much as you ask your own self. You are not bothered by people's, what should I do with this? How should I go about with this? Somehow you trust yourself because you have spent an ample amount of time with yourself, that you trust your own opinion, you trust your own judgment, that you don't have to call everybody on your phone list and ask for their opinion, because you trust yourself so much, because you have managed to enjoy being by yourself. And that is another power that you can tap into. And another thing, 1 Corinthians says, 3:8, now he who plants and he who waters are one, and each one will receive his own reward according to his own labor. So God is the one who plant, and God is the one to water. You are planted in this world for a reason. God is going to water you because you are supposed to grow however God wants you to grow. As I said, do not allow society, people, the standards of your family to change you for who you're not. You must embrace who you are. I know it's hard to find your authenticity, your self-identity in the world that's full of noise, and we're bombarded with so much noise, and somehow you can't even think for yourself. This is why, as I said, you have to journal. You have to ask yourself the question, what are my weaknesses? What are my strengths? What am I good at? What am I not good at? I have learned that I am not so good at marketing or pushing people. I'm not so good at being on your face all the time saying buy this, because I said to myself, the reason why I don't like to do that, because if people are really going to buy, they will buy. You don't even have to push them. You don't even have to convince them, because if they really want to support you, they will. We are not that desperate people. another thing that I can share, that you are the person that you're not so desperate. Because as I said, you love your own company. You enjoy being by yourself. You are not bothered by yourself. Even though people might think it's weird, you might think that she is weird, she just loved by herself. But as I said, the more you embrace who you are, the better it is for you to become more confident and to just be comfortable in your own skin the way that God created you. You must grow where you're planted. The same thing with this plant behind me. If the plant has been nurtured, watered the amount of water, and you cultivate it and put fertilizer in it, the same thing with yourself. If you cultivate it in yourself, time and energy, and you need a lot of rest as an introverted, we are also those kind of people where we cannot just keep on doing and doing with to-do list, because at the end of the day, we're so lethargic, we're depleted of our energy. And for me, when I'm too stressed, I get a headache. I have a body ache on my back, and the tension is so hard for me that sometimes I complain to my husband saying, I don't know what's going on. Maybe because I'm too stressed, I have all these aches and pain in my back that I'm carrying, because we need our quiet time. As an introvert, we need to just rest. And one of the things that I have been enjoying lately is to listen to the sound of the rainfalls on YouTube, sound of this calming music, soothing music. Tim Janis, I'm going to link that down below, this instrumental hymnal songs that is instrumental. And sometimes I just watch the view on that screen. I don't even have to travel outside, and it somehow it really releases the stress. And one of the things too is just sit down for 10 minutes and allow yourself to be quiet and observe your thoughts and just pray and journal. And these are the things that introverted people also do naturally. You don't even have to be told to sit quietly. And you're not even told to just be quiet or sit in the corner for 10 minutes. It doesn't really bother us. For some reason, it was something that I had to discover and uncover, that I'm a mother and a wife. It took me a long time to finally realize that this woman is not really weird. And I'm pretty sure some people also out there who can relate, because as a teenager, as I said, I always knew something was up with me, something is not right, some just strange, because I see other girlfriends, they're always being their friends, like five girlfriends are always together laughing, and I was always the one who will walk by myself, going to get some transportation and walk somewhere at the cafe or get something by myself. And those were the things sometimes I would just compare myself, as I've observed back then, saying, why are those girls, it seems as though they're always in groups. And most of the time I was either by myself reading on the bench or just journaling or doing something by myself, because at those times I was really an introverted that I did not realize that I was. So if you are a person who can relate to this video, I'm not sure if it's biblical, that introversion. Maybe it is, because Jesus probably was one who loved being by himself, who was an introverted. It probably doesn't say in the Bible that he is one, but I just found out that Jesus was always praying in the morning. He was always want to go outside by himself. He just get exhausted by the crowd. Well, Jesus was always getting bombarded with requests. Jesus, go over here. Jesus, go over there. And he would always say, just not today. Remember Lazarus, who about to die, and he was sick for 4 days. Jesus waited for 4 days before he went to see Lazarus. And because this is what we have to realize as introvert. We cannot always say yes to everybody. We have to learn no, and we cannot feel guilty for saying no to people sometimes. And if they don't understand that, perhaps you should let them understand why, because sometimes I have no energy. When I used to be always saying yes to people, when people would invite me, when I used to go to church, go here, go there, I mean, there was part of me that I just went because I wanted to please people. I don't want to offend them. But at the end of the day, you would think to yourself, why did I even say yes? Because I just wish I just want to stay at home. And sometimes you also cancel a last minute plan because you rather want to be at home. I know you can relate. Sometimes you say to your friends, let's meet up somewhere. And for some reason, you kind of like, I just want to stay at home. And you cancel that too. Because these are the things that as introverted people have to deal with on a daily basis, is being out there and trying to deal with people that somehow they don't understand us. That is all that I want to share to you, that if you feel like you don't belong in this world, and if you're just like me, you are not alone. Okay?